In the last few years, it has seemed that Google is trying to get a monopoly on all the information, not only on the internet, but in all literature and scholarship. All the books ever written in the pre-computer age. This is what prompted me to start thinking about the similarities between Google and God. For there are three traditional attributes of God in Christian theology: omnipotence, or unlimited power; omniscience, or unlimited knowledge; and omnibenevolence, or unlimited goodness. All of these are important, but here I want to concentrate on the second criterion, knowledge. Google seems to be cornering the market on knowledge, and this is an attribute usually reserved for God. The idea of God as all-knowing has a peculiar twist at 2 points in the book of Genesis, where God is portrayed as protecting his monopoly on knowledge. The first is the Garden of Eden story. Now, think about it. Review that. That's, of course, the second creation story in Genesis. You would think that there are two trees in the Garden of Eden, right? Tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You would think that the tree which God would forbid Adam and Eve to eat would be the tree of life. For if they ate of that, they would be immortal like God. But no, he put no restrictions on that tree. What he forbade them was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God didn't want them to have that knowledge and expelled them for eating of it. Why? Was he trying to maintain a monopoly on his knowledge of ethics? Or just preserve the first humans in a state of innocence? After all, once they had eaten of it, they became aware that they were naked. And when God comes to the garden, he says, "Who told you you were naked?" A more clear example of God's monopolistic attitude toward knowledge is the Tower of Babel story. God sows linguistic confusion so that the humans don't get too close to the sky. Now, I personally have a lot of problems with any God who has a purpose to keep humans ignorant. I believe with our Universalist forebears that what Orthodox Christians call sin and evil is a direct result of ignorance. And if we would fight these, we fight them with education and knowledge. Let's hear it for those school teachers. Hear, hear. Hence the internet and Google are a good thing. Now, when we look more closely at the comparison between God and Google as it comes to knowledge, we see that the knowledge Google has specialized in seems a far cry from the knowledge attributed to God traditionally. When we say God knows, we're usually talking about some murky issue in human psychology or a mystery of the natural world. A question on the order of, why did I eat that third piece of pie? God knows. Why is there life on earth? God knows. We would not say God knows when the issue is, what is the capital of Belarus? Because we know that's a fact that we can look up on Google. When I had my two 30-something children visit me last September, both of them had smartphones and laptops at their fingertips almost constantly. And any little fact which came up in casual conversation was immediately checked on Google. Went true with your experience? Let's call that kind of knowledge encyclopedia knowledge, encyclopedia facts, after the source we all used to use before there was one. Google is especially good at encyclopedia facts, which is why it's probably very hard to sell encyclopedias these days. Disclaimer, I once tried to sell Encyclopedia Britannica for a whole week in 1972. I didn't sell a single one. But Google, of course, does a lot more than tell you the capital of Belarus. It tells you what's playing at the theater in the next town, and where on Cape Cod you can find a water pump for a 1992 Dodge truck. It connects you with the resources you need to get what you want. It gives you, in fact, more concretely useful information than you're likely to get in prayer. Given the choice of prayer or Google to find a water pump, most of us would choose Google. Of course, some of us have wonderful stories of things that have come to us through prayer as well. But this comparison is unfair to God, because God lives, in James Luther Adams' famous phrase, at the intersection of the intimate and the ultimate. God's knowledge is said to be not just of the planets and the galaxies, but of every hair on your head and the fall of every sparrow. The biggest divide in our field of knowledge is between the subjective and the objective, between what's out there and what's in here. What's out there is the domain of science, of fact, of things perceived with the five senses. What's in here is the domain of art, of imagination, of dreams and fears and motivations. We might think that both God and Google are primarily concerned with what's out there, with the planets spinning in their orbits and the procession of the seasons, with the ultimate grand scheme. But then we have this Psalm 139, which pretty clearly says that God is concerned as well with the intimate, with what's inside. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. In this view, God is sort of a super parent who holds us to account. You can't lie to God. You can't put one over on God. Don't even try. God knows you better than you know yourself. God knows what you're going to say before you say it. That's what it says in the Psalm. God knows what you're going to say before you say it. Now that's intimacy. You often encounter couples who have been married for a long time who complete each other's sentences. I've only been here a couple of years, and yet there's some of you who complete my sentences for me. You've got to know someone pretty well to know what he or she is going to say in advance. In the Psalm, God searches me and knows me. But when I use Google, I'm the one doing the searching. But here's the catch. While I am searching for something on Google, Google is also searching for something in me. It is searching for my interests and preferences, so it can sell ads on the border of my search screen to companies selling products in this area. I don't know whether Google knows what I'm going to say before I say it, but at least it knows me in a sense pretty close to what the psalmist says about God. But by this time, a lot of you are ready to argue with my basic premise that Google knows anything. The internet, after all, is a repository of a huge amount of information, and Google renders that information useful and accessible to us, to the user. But neither the internet nor Google has consciousness, does it? It would seem that the millions of lookup projects which are occurring over Google at any moment don't amount to a single thought. Google by itself is not going to feel pain or joy or remorse. It will not resolve to turn the other cheek or to lose some weight. It has no intention, no desire, no shame,